It used to be that when my wife and I would move to an area in Seoul that we were unfamiliar with, we had a little process that started on moving day. We'd usually arrive at the new place with the movers somewhere around lunchtime. So we would want to order lunch for us and them. Now, being unfamiliar with the options that were available for delivery as we were, we had to first find out where we could order anything, and that was an easily solvable problem even before we had smartphones. All we had to do was go into the kitchen and open a kitchen drawer. Usually it would be the top drawer at one end of the kitchen counter or the kitchen island. And inside, we would find a pile of refrigerator magnets and stickers with the backing still on them, unpeeled stickers. Some of them would be little small marketing designs with a restaurant name and phone number. Others would be menu cards with full options and, of course, the restaurant name and the phone number. So there we go, problem solved. Pick one of the cards, call the restaurant and order. Now, back in the day, 30 years ago, delivery staples were fried chicken. You usually have 2 or 3 places or more in the local area that would deliver to you. Chinese food, 2, 3, 4 options available pretty much everywhere you went. Usually one jokbal place, pig's feet, and often at least one Korean restaurant with stews and rice dishes and that kind of thing. I mean, fried chicken and Chinese restaurants, you could always count on them delivering, but the Korean restaurants, it was a little less common. But this was a process we went through even up until 2018. I remember that was the last time we did that, because when we moved to our current apartment last year, after living in the old place for 7 years, we didn't even bother looking in the kitchen drawer. We just ordered on Coupang Eats.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Downtown, just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. No finer place for sure. Downtown, everything's waiting for you.
Hello there. It's a Saturday evening here in Seoul. We've been going through a heat wave recently. The days have been quite hot. I haven't been doing my daily walks in the way I usually do them. I've just been going out to get coffee or whatever, sometimes lunch, and just come home. Even the nights have been unpleasant. We've had temperatures north of 25 degrees Celsius this past week, and that's no good for me. Right now, I believe it's above 25 degrees Celsius, but we've got a nice breeze blowing. It actually does not feel hot. It feels actually cool right now compared to what it has been. So I thought it's a great night to shoot a video. Now I'm walking down a street that is kind of a shopping area for the local neighborhood. We've got a variety of shops through here. A few convenience stores like GS25 here behind me, and other things. Going back to the process that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the next stage after moving day was familiarizing myself with a street like this. Every local area has a shopping street like this that serves the local neighborhood. It's not the kind of place people come to from around the city, you know, not one of the places like that. It's just there for the locals. Now, there are certain kinds of businesses that you can find around any local neighborhood, and my goal in exploring was always about finding exactly where they were and how many options I had available. So certain things like grocers right? You can usually find at least one, sometimes two or three little grocery stores in the area. Sometimes the bigger grocery store might be a little further away, but you've got one or two smaller mom and pop grocers in walking distance. Fruit and vegetable vendors, dry cleaners, hardware stores, hair shops. These are all things that you could count on finding in a local neighborhood 30 years ago, and you can count on finding in local neighborhoods today. These are things that don't go away. Real estate agents, barbecue restaurants, pizza restaurants, I can go on. And there are some kinds of shops that have become less common or that you don't see anymore. One thing that comes to mind is video rental. Of course, who rents videotapes these days? We have city gas now on every building in every neighborhood, so you don't see the places that rent oil or gas for your heating system. And then we have businesses that you didn't used to find in neighborhoods a long time ago, but they're very common now, like this one. An unmanned combination snack shop and laundromat. That's two businesses, actually. This is kind of a new thing. These unmanned snack shops started popping up a few years ago, and so did the laundrettes, the laundromats, whatever you want to call them. They started showing up in a few neighborhoods here and there, and now they're everywhere. And I'm starting to see places like this where they're combined. This isn't the first one I've seen. That's actually a good idea. But another thing is cafes, right? Coffee shops. Coffee shops weren't something you found in every residential area. You just didn't find them. They weren't a neighborhood staple. But there's one right here behind me. There are several others around this little neighborhood here. Some franchises like Mega Coffee and Hadia, and then little small independent shops like this one here. But when my wife and I moved to our current apartment, I didn't even bother to go out and explore the local shopping street until much later, because it just wasn't necessary. Our habits are so much different today than we used to be. It used to be that a shopping street like this was the place where we picked up many of the things we needed most of the time, right? If we wanted to get takeout, we'd stop at a local place on the way home or call one of the local restaurants, in our drawer. If we needed to go grocery shopping, we'd go to a little market like this one. Our daily necessities were bought on a street like this. Occasionally, we would make a trip to something like E-Mart, right, for a big grocery haul to buy things that we couldn't find in the local market. But these days, I hardly ever go to the local grocer. My wife buys everything we need online. She orders through Coupang and Curly or whatever else is out there. And I've noticed over the years, fewer and fewer people shopping on these streets. I see a lot of people passing by, right? A lot of people going through from point A to point B. What I don't see is people browsing the windows. What I don't see is people carrying shopping bags. I guarantee you, pretty much any time of day, if you were to go into this little K Halin Mart right here, you wouldn't have many people in front of you in line at the checkout. Maybe one or two, but usually nobody. I can also tell you that where this pharmacy is right here, 4 months ago, this was another little grocery store. But it shut down. Now, I think in this case, the redevelopment project here may have impacted its business because there's a large area that was demolished where they're building these apartments, and there's like 3 complexes they're building, 3 sections of this apartment. It wouldn't have been the only reason that this grocery store went out of business, because I've seen data from the Seoul city government that shopping in areas like this has declined year after year after year. Meanwhile, people are spending more than ever online through services like Coupang. That started really to spike, both the food delivery and goods delivery during the pandemic. And though I do still see people going out to eat in the local neighborhoods in the evenings, what I often see are, small groups, friends, colleagues, whatever. I think what you see less of is just, families or individuals going out and eating at a restaurant. I think these days, if people decide not to cook at home, instead of going out to a restaurant like they used to, they just order. Right? I mean, that's always been an option for certain things, but now it's an option for everything. Any kind of restaurant you can think of is available. And I know that's true in many other places around the world. It's not unique to Korea. That's not what I'm saying here, but it's just one of the ways in which life in these local neighborhoods has changed since I've been here. I can remember coming out in an area like this. I'd be able to sit somewhere, like on one of these benches over here, and just watch people interact, the local residents of the community. You could see neighbors who know each other hanging out and chatting outside of a shop because they've both been out shopping for something and they just happen to bump into each other on the street. I see less of that these days. It feels like, people don't have time to stop anymore. They're not hanging out in the neighborhood. They're passing through the neighborhood they live in, right? They're not on the street to do anything except to walk along it. This place here has a lot of restaurants, barbecue restaurants, pizza restaurants, chicken restaurants, all kinds of stuff along here. And they're all quite empty right now. People sitting at one or two tables in each restaurant. I mean, on a lovely night like this, you see a lot of people walking, getting exercise. But, I'd expect some of these places to be busier than they are on a Saturday night. So yeah, I've seen data on how the shopping habits are changing and have changed, but I haven't yet read any studies of how those changes are impacting life in those local neighborhoods. All I have is anecdotal evidence. I get this sense in every neighborhood I go to that people are just passing through. You used to see people all over the place carrying shopping bags. You just don't see that like you used to. Now you go to neighborhoods where the local population is elderly, and you'll see a lot more people actually out shopping, especially if they have like a traditional market nearby. Those places can get pretty busy and the customers do skew older, but I'll bet even there you'll find data showing that overall spending is down compared to the past. I don't see this as a negative thing. I don't see it as a positive thing. It's just a thing. It's something that has happened. That's how life has changed here in these neighborhoods. But one thing I do think is overwhelmingly positive that has changed since I've been here is this kind of thing right here. One of the things my wife and I have always taken into account when we've moved is access to green space, proximity to green space, because we've had dogs in our house for pretty much all of our marriage, and we like walking our dogs through green space. And in the last 25 years, it's been much, much easier to find places that are relatively close to green space because there's just so much more of it. I mean, this stream used to be covered, but it's uncovered now. And you've got this nice, lovely path here that you can walk your dogs along. There are hillside parks all over the city that have been expanded and even built where there was none before. And the infrastructure in the parks has significantly been upgraded in many areas. You've got new green spaces you're closer to. You've got green spaces that are more accessible than they used to be. Now, there are areas in the city that are a little further removed from the bigger green spaces, but usually there's some kind of small green space within walking distance. And if you're willing to walk further, you can usually get to a larger green space, but there's a lot more of it these days, so it's not as much of a consideration as it used to be. And another thing is the subway network. It has expanded tremendously in the 35 years since I've been here. It used to be a big consideration, how close is this place to a subway station? There are very few places remaining in the city where you can genuinely say you're too far away from a subway station. I think there's a pretty big area out in Eunpyeonggu that is lacking subway stations, but pretty much anywhere in the city that you go to, pick a neighborhood, find an apartment, you're never more than a 15-minute walk away from a subway station. I think back to the years when I first got out of the Army and I had no washing machine. But I still had access to the base for a while because I was working on base. So I would put all my laundry in a bag, carry it onto Yongsan Garrison to the little laundromat there, and do my laundry, use the washing machine, the dryers, and then take it all home. And then for the first few years of our marriage, my wife and I had no washing machine, but that's okay because our neighborhood and most neighborhoods had a balebang. And a balebang is just a laundry service. It's different from a dry cleaners. We had the dry cleaners where we would take, things that needed to be dry cleaned, but the balebang would do normal laundry. And now we've got laundromats everywhere. They were not a thing here until, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. I don't recall ever seeing a laundromat in Seoul before the 2010s when I started seeing them pop up around Gangnam. It turns out that was the second wave. The first wave came along in the late 80s and the early 90s when they started opening around university neighborhoods where you could find a lot of students living in small one-room apartments that had no washing machine. But two things happened throughout the 90s that kind of killed the demand for laundromats. One is that more and more Korean households started buying washing machines. Two, people renting out apartments started including washing machines as amenities. I don't know if laundromats completely disappeared between the early 90s and the 2010s. I just know I was never aware of them. I had no idea they were ever here. And you think about the time before there was a coffee shop on every corner and down every back street. These days, if I meet a friend in their neighborhood or they come to my neighborhood, we'll often meet up in a coffee shop. Back in the day, we didn't do that. We'd usually just end up in the apartment or go have a beer somewhere or go to a restaurant or maybe sit in a park or something. But the coffee shop is now the de facto meeting place, it seems. And I think that's true for a lot of people. Pet supplies and vet clinics, those things are pretty much everywhere now. Any residential area, you're going to find them these days. That was not always the case because pet ownership wasn't as common in the past as it is today. So there were times in the past, in the early days of our marriage, when my wife and I would have to go a little bit of a distance to a vet. And if we wanted to go to a pet supply store, we often had to go well out of our way to do that. No more. We've got multiple pet supply shops within walking distance of our apartment, and several vets. Very, very convenient compared to how it used to be. Bakeries, that's another thing. In the 90s, you usually could not count on having a little independent bakery in any given local neighborhood. Instead, what you would find is, a couple of the big chains on the main streets in the area. But these days, there are small independent bakeries all over the city, and most neighborhoods have one. And that's really good if you want to buy like sandwich bread, because any sandwich bread you buy from the bakery is going to be better than any sandwich bread you get from a grocery store. Convenience stores, CU, GS25, 7-Eleven, and eMart 24. They probably killed the old small little mom and pop shupa, the little small convenience stores usually operated by elderly people. You could typically count on finding 2 or 3 of them within walking distance of your apartment in any given neighborhood. Some were bigger than others, but most of them were tiny. Those are a dying breed. There's still some of them around, but convenience stores are ubiquitous. They are everywhere, and there are usually more of them within walking distance than there ever were of the little mom and pop shops. In my experience, in our current apartment and the last couple of apartments we lived in, convenience stores were closer to our apartment than any other kind of, grocery store or supermarket. So those are always nearby. That's really handy, when it's late at night and you're jonesing for something, or you suddenly need batteries for your remote control. 11 p.m., 1 a.m., you go out and you can get whatever it is you need from the convenience store. It can also be handy in the daytime when you find you need something, but you don't want to walk 15 minutes to the grocery store and another 15 minutes back, and you can just instead, go 5 minutes to the CU or whatever. I can go on and on about details like that, but I think what it all adds up to is that life in neighborhoods like this has become more convenient, not just because we can order everything online now, but because even in the local neighborhood, you have options available to you that you did not have in the past. But at the same time, I get the sense that the neighborhoods have lost their communal feel. Not that I ever really knew many of my neighbors in any neighborhood where I've lived, but you always had that sense of community anyway, because you could see it around you. You could see the groups of people shopping together and hanging out to chat on the street. And because I did a lot of shopping in the neighborhood, I had relationships with the shop owners. We would greet each other on the street when we saw each other. But I feel like that's lost now. I see the same clerks at the CU that I go to regularly, but I don't go to the local grocery store often enough to know any of the staff there to recognize them on the street. It's just not like it used to be in that regard.
Don't hang around and let your problems surround you. There are movie shows downtown. Maybe you know some little places to go to where they never close. Downtown, just listen to the rhythm of a gentle bossa nova. You'll be dancing with them too before the night is over. Happy again. The lights are much brighter there. You can't forget.
Well, that's all I've got for you tonight. Thanks for coming along with me. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Where all the lights are bright downtown, waiting for you tonight. Downtown, you're gonna